Hey everyone, welcome back to VMD and another episode in the Residency Specialty Collab series where I go through and interview somebody who has successfully matched this year in a family medicine program. So Dr. Rothstein and I actually both applied to family medicine and we both had a great number of interviews. So for this episode where we're going to talk all about his interview tips with family medicine, I'll definitely add in a lot of my own information. And for a lot of people out there that have been emailing me in regards to, watching this video versus listening to it, totally listen to it as a podcast. Put it on the side and you can just listen along. I love that the screen has all of the answers that I asked Dr. Rothstein to fill out available. So whoever's watching the video can also watch it. But if you're just listening in, that's awesome too. I hope you guys all enjoy this. There's a ton of amazing information out there and good luck on all of your interviews. Thank you again, Dr. Rothstein, for doing the second part of this video. And now you're going to sort of elaborate on my questions that I have in terms of interviewing.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. So let's get started right away. Okay, awesome. Like 25 interviews. Congratulations first on just like a fantastic interview season. That is so great. Tell us how you did it. What's your secret?
The secret is being yourself. No. The secret is just prepping well, being yourself, doing work. And the interviews will follow, whether you're an IMG or not. That's the way it's
right.
going.
100% agree. So when did you how was your, I say this in every collaboration because everyone's trajectory is different. So in terms of your pattern of the season, what sort of waves did you experience and how did that entire interview season as a whole go for you?
Yeah. So I had a very unique interview experience, I think. To start off, I submitted right away, started getting interviews immediately. So I think some of them are reflex interviews where they sort of hit you back with an email. And then they were sort of dispersed. And I actually ended up getting my last interview the end or beginning of December, like very late. I think I got an interview. People are still dropping out of interview spots. So you never know. So stay hopeful. And like sometimes it really goes until the end and keep waiting. And that one was a Mayo Clinic interview. So it was a good program. So
oh my God, that's amazing.
Stay hopeful and keep looking at your inbox. One thing that I will say that I think is very important, especially FM. I had sort of an interesting experience because I was fortunate to do well on my exams to a point where I had the options and the opportunity to apply to different programs like surgery or internal medicine, different things. And it just so happens that I love family medicine and I've always wanted to be a family doctor. And I think it's such an important specialty and I'm very excited to go into it. That being said, I did realize that there was a trend happening where I was getting fewer interviews than some of my peers. And after looking into this, I found out that there are some people who had similar scores to me, did well on their STEP scores, that were getting less interviews. And that's because it was assumed that we might be backing up with family medicine. It's an interesting thing that's happening. The idea behind it is that programs have a certain number of spots for interviews. They think that you're not really committed to family medicine and you're just backing up with it. Then they don't want to give you that spot. They'd rather give it to someone they think is going to come to the program. So
wow, so that's so crazy. So it's like we want to drive students to do the best that they absolutely can on STEP. And you've done so well on STEP and kind of like backfiring on you in a little way, which is kind of crazy.
It was a little crazy. I was a little nerve wracking, and I tried to get to the bottom of it. And this is what I was told, is that that's what was happening. And I've learned a lot of things from this and things that I want to pass on to people applying to family medicine in any situation. I think it's very important in family medicine specifically to show your dedication and your interest in family medicine. And then that's your first choice program. And there's certain ways to do this. So some of the important things that you need to do: letters of reference. You need to get very good letters of reference from family medicine, your family medicine core rotation, and from your family medicine electives. I think we touched on it in the other video, but very important to get some of your very early electives in your fourth year should be family medicine electives. It shows that you're committed to family medicine and that's what you want to apply for. And those are the letters you're going to get. The other thing you can do, I started doing this in the middle when I found out about this and I was told to do this, is to start calling programs. I wouldn't start doing this right away, but if there are programs that you're interested in that you think might think that you're backing up, if you haven't heard from them for a while, you can actually call the program or write them an email just expressing your interest and your commitment to family medicine, and that family medicine is your number one choice. And it just shows that you're for real and this is what you want to be, and it's not a backup.
Yeah. What an interesting.
A lot of people at SGU and in IMG schools, they tell you, do really well on your exams. do really well in your exams, and you'll be set. And I had that idea, I've done really well. I love family medicine.
Right.
Thank God, like this might be an easy process. I'll get so many
Right.
options, I'll have so many options. And I was
Yeah.
confused. And so yeah,
So just to clarify for all the viewers, usually people when they're like, oh, I wasn't able to get like my ideal number of interviews, and usually ask them questions, it turns out that they didn't do good on your step. Yours is the complete opposite. You did phenomenal on your step. That people were kind of taken back as to why are you applying to FM. But I think you are such a prime example of the fact that when you have a passion for something, and yours is FM, pursue it no matter what, and not doing good on your step or hiccuping along the way and not giving something your best effort just because you think that specialty you don't need to get extremely high scores. Such a different mentality, and I think you set such a prime example. So for viewers out there, if you guys haven't taken your step or whatever it is, if you're thinking about FM, that is no excuse to do any less better than you actually potentially can, right?
Absolutely. And at no point through this process, as frustrated as I was, did I regret doing my best on the exams? Did I regret any of my performance or anything?
Right.
You got to be yourself. You have to do your best always. And I would like to be, and at the end of the day, you want to be in a program that wants you, that wants people with with whatever scores you have and people and who you are. The truth is that the harder you work and the more knowledge you accumulate, it's all beneficial for you going forward in the future. So not only is it just for these exams and for the applications, everything you learn is going to help you in your future career to become a better doctor, so that you can serve your community and your patients the best you can, to the best of your ability. And the interviews that I did get ended up being places that I really wanted to go. They might have been fewer. They might have been not as many because of this whole sort of phenomenon that's happening here, but they were good ones, and I ended up being very happy in the end. So definitely, I'm not saying don't work hard on your exams. I think you should do the best you can always.
At the end of the day, you match into the specialty you want it to match in, and that is so important, because now you're pursuing a career in something you're so passionate about. The reason why I applied to FM was because that's what got me into medicine. And primary care was what got me into medicine. I think because we're both Canadians, we share those some of values of why primary care is so important. And I definitely want to take this platform here and, I think highlight what you said is that you should strive to be a fantastic student in academics no matter what. Your specialty should not determine how your scores are. Your scores are just truly you proving who you are. And your specialty is really also, I think, a good mix of your personality. So don't not apply somewhere where you think you fit in and need to be just because of your score.
Absolutely. Yeah, that would be my advice. But other than that, the interview period was a ton of fun. And I'm sure we'll get into more details about it. But
let's literally jump right into that. What's your overall advice for applicants that are going to go into FM interviews?
So for FM interviews or for any interview, and this is generally something I live by in life, I think practice is my advice. You might think, oh, I'm going to go in, I'm better off the cuff, like I'm going to wing it kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I can tell you from experience, when you say it out loud the first time, it's not going to come out the way you think it's going to come out. So this is how I prep for an interview. I got together with one of my friends who was also interviewing. We prepared questions for each other. I think there's actually resources for this. You can get like typical questions.
Mm-hmm. How did you guys find those resources?
It might have been OCG from the school.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
I think they sent out an email with questions. Otherwise, there are also booklets you can. I think there's like Master the Interview you can get off Amazon.
Right.
And we went through and we asked each other questions, easy ones, tough ones, funny ones, just to see what your response would be. Because at first, it's a lot of stuttering, I think. The second time you hear it, you have a prepared response. You know exactly what you want to say. You have a story that you want to say. And it flows a lot better. A lot of people will tell you to read up on the program. I'm of two views of this. I think reading up on the program is important, but also when you get to the interview, you'll see that they tell you a lot about the program at the interview. Good to be prepared, so definitely read up on it. Like you can go online, Google the program, find their website, look at reviews, prepare questions you want to know, you want answered. But I wouldn't stress too much and really just soak in everything during the interview day. They'll tell you a lot. A very important thing is know what you want to get out of the interview. The interviews are for both people. The interview is for them to get a good look at you and to see if you're a fit. But it's also equally for you to see if you like the program and if you feel that the program is a good fit for you. I know that I went to a couple of interviews without that mindset at first, and I sort of went in and I was nervous and I was trying to show my best self. And then after the interview, it was all a blur to me because I didn't take the time to really soak in the information in the program, what I wanted to know about the program. And then I had so many questions I wanted to ask afterwards. So I think before you go into the program, sit down and maybe even write a list on a piece of paper. What do you want to know about the program? What are you interested in that the program has to offer? So it's as much about you as it is about them.
Moving to the next one, what was your most overall, or a couple or whatever, the most common questions that you had throughout your SM interviews?
Yeah, the most common question, and I was actually surprised at this at first, and it took me a while to get used to this. About half of the interview time is spent, do you have any questions for us?
Yes. So, yes. I always tell, people that reach out to me asking questions, I'm like, make sure you have questions ready to go. Genuine things that you want to know, whether that's connecting with your interviewer or about the program that's not already on their website. But I cannot even stress this enough. Like, I'm so glad you brought this up.
Exactly. It's understandable. And they'll even say, we know that you get this question a lot, so don't feel like you have to have questions, but it's better to have questions. Ask questions that tie into your own, where you can share something about yourself. It's use this time strategically. Say something like, well, I see even about the resident life. I see that your residents are very close with each other. I actually enjoy playing basketball. Do you know if there are extracurriculars that your residents?
I love that.
So then they're like, oh, you play basketball, and then it starts a conversation.
Right. So, important tip to highlight here for applicants is make sure you strategize into what things you want to emphasize about you as an applicant, and make sure you have planned ready, like maybe not robotically, but just have an idea of, okay, if they ask me what questions I have, I'm going to ask this question, and that's going to lead me to this discussion. At least have a plan.
Exactly. I totally agree.
I love that. So moving on to difficult questions, because everybody has their own way of dealing with this. How did you tackle these, and sort of what questions did you have?
Thought process with difficult questions, and my strategy was, you're not a robot, and they don't expect you to be a robot. You can pause and you can really think about it. And actually, it says something about you that you take the time to think about it. It's the same thing in family. If a patient had a difficult question for you, they always tell you it's really okay and actually preferred for you to say, I don't know. But but I will go find out and I'll get back to you. So I had the same mentality in these interviews. They ask a difficult question, don't be afraid to pause and think about it and then give a well thought out answer. I think that says a lot about you. It actually is a very positive reaction to that. There are some, especially in family medicine, they ask you some silly questions. Viewers will ask you, some of the questions I had were, if you were a cookie, what kind of cookie would you be? I had
a cartoon one once. Like which cartoon character would you be?
Right. My strategy with those is exactly what's happening now. They're funny questions. Smile.
Yeah, exactly.
It's funny. Don't take it too seriously. You don't have to give a perfect answer. They're not looking for a perfect answer. They're looking to see how you're going to handle the situation. Are you someone who's going to freak out, or are you going to sort of go with it and smile and give a funny answer?
From my personal experience, and tell me if you agree. Like, everyone in my SM interviews were so just friendly. Everyone was easy-going, and that's people they're looking for too. They want people to fit into that aspect of family medicine.
Exactly. They want a good fit, and that's basically it. And the other thing I would say, be ready to answer any question on any part of your CV, because they could pick out anything. Yeah. So I would go through your CV before the interview and make sure that you could really talk about everything on your CV. And if you can talk about something passionately, that is all the better. If, for instance, I did some research back in the day that I literally could talk about for an hour about. I wrote my thesis on it, so I could spend an hour talking about it, and I would say that. They would ask me about it, and I'd say, listen, feel free to cut me off because I'm going to keep going on it. And they love that. They want to hear your passion. They want to hear you talk about things that you enjoyed doing.
Definitely.
So go through your CV and make sure you can really talk about things there.
Off of that, I think really knowing your application inside and out is just going to ease, your mind when you get asked very meticulous questions. Because even I had very, very particular details. Like, oh, let's go back to this volunteer experience that you had in the first year of undergrad. What did you do? As an applicant, being in the field like medicine, we have done so many things to get to where we are. It gets normal for you to forget little details, but just refresh, and the things that you've done. And I think that's a really good point. What sort of things did you ask during interviews or in the tour, specifically?
The tour was usually residents, I would say. I thought the tour is, it seemed like a tricky time, honestly. going through the tour, what questions to ask, what questions not to ask. Yourself, if you have actual questions, ask your questions. Remain engaged, definitely. You don't want to be looking during the tour. You don't need to be asking a million questions, but definitely don't be on your phone. Eye contact with the person who's giving the tour, so they feel like you're engaged, you're excited, comfortable. Be yourself and be respectful, be attentive. I think that's the main thing. I didn't really have any specific questions during the tour to ask. So EMR, I think for family medicine is important because you spend a lot of time in the outpatient clinic as well as the hospital. And you'll see that some hospitals have a shared EMR system between the two. So it's really easy. And other ones will have different EMRs, a different one in the hospital, a different one in the clinic.
So in terms of how you communicated with residents, either before, during, or after interviews, what was your whole take on communicating with residents?
Sure. Communication in general before and after the interview, I'll just say this point here. I don't think I wouldn't stress too much about it. I know that there's a lot of stress. A lot of applicants are super stressed with, oh my God, when do I send the email? What do I write in the email? Don't be too stressed. They have your whole application that you worked on for so long. You've been you your entire life, and one email is not going to make or break that. You've given them so much material. You had the interview. I wouldn't stress too much about before and after. And communication before, for me, very limited. When I received the email, I responded. I said, thank you so much. I'm very excited. I didn't go into too much other detail because they have so much detail about you already. And whatever they don't have, they're going to find out on the interview day. During the interview, so for family medicine specifically, a lot of times you get a dinner the night before. I found, especially if you're out of state, they're going to invite you.
Majority of them.
Dinner is going to be with the residents. So as V's highlighted here, I think it's very important. Be personable, but don't be overbearing. So you remember, you're in a social situation. You're at a dinner with sometimes very few other applicants, and there's a lot of other applicants, other residents, there are other people there. Give a chance for everyone to be heard. You don't want to be like overtaking the conversation, or you don't want to be too overbearing.
Respectful. Yeah, I think this is like social etiquette. Just make sure you're aware of your surroundings, know what to say when, and definitely interact with the candidates. Yes, you want to show the residents that you're very interested in the program. But again, that goes back to the start. Don't be overbearing on the residents. Have a balance. Also eat your food. Like enjoy it. Like treat it like any other professional business casual dinner.
Yeah, the thing to remember here is that they're not leaving this dinner and they don't have lists of your names and they're writing down details of things you told them. Like this isn't the time to tell them about your CV or anything like that. If you think about what they are taking from the dinner, they're just taking a general impression of you. And most of the time it's like, they might be looking for red flags. Like, they're not really looking at all the details. They just want to see if they can be comfortable with you. No pressure. The advice I had for the drink was, if they don't have an alcoholic beverage, then don't have an alcoholic beverage. If they have one, you can have one if you want. If you don't want one, don't feel pressure to have one. I wouldn't go more than one. That's what I was told. I didn't look at it as if you're in competition with the other candidates.
Yes.
That.
Huge. They're not your competitors. They're going to be there to support you throughout the day. Seriously. Having a conversation, like you said, like just starting from the dinner, trust me, the next day when you're walking around tours and stuff, you made a friend or two already, and that makes the day so much less stressful.
For sure. And it shows that you're able to socialize.
And you should be there to support them. It goes two ways.
In your communication, especially before the interview and during the interview, I'd be very, very weary of saying that it's your number one choice, unless it really is your number one choice. Then I would think about saying it, but I definitely don't say it to every program. Number one, you don't know how they communicate with each other. You could say, I really like this program. It's going to be one of my top choices. But I wouldn't say it's your number one choice. So that's one thing for sure.
That sort of links into the next question here. How do you communicate with the PD? So with your experience throughout last year's interview season, either again, pre, during, or after the interview, what was your interaction with the PD, and what's your best advice on applicants interacting with the PD?
In any interaction, that's why I have it there. I think you should be, and this is actually words that I often remember and live by: confident, humble, and respectful. I love that. Whenever you interact with anyone, with a PD, I honestly, the same as I communicated with anyone. I think, I'll go from before. Pre-interview, the same. I had minimal communication. I think you're going to get an email, so not the director, but the coordinator, who's going to invite you to the interview, and you say thank you very much, and I had minimal interaction. But during the thing, you're going to have a one-on-one with the PD, presumably. An important thing is to show your interest in the program. Show that you like the program. It's like meeting your girlfriend's parents. Like you want to tell them how great their daughter is. You know?
Right.
I don't know if maybe don't keep that in, but that's actually how I think.
No, I'm gonna put this in the video because I love this analogy.
Yeah, you sort of want to pump their tires a little bit. They're very proud. Think about them. They've their whole career. Their career is right now building this amazing program that they're very proud of. And you want to tell them, it looks great. Like, I really like your program. They're going to respond to that. And they are people who know their program the best. So some of the questions that I would have prepared for PDs was, what do you think is the best feature of your program? If you can get the PD to talk and become passionate about their program, you've done a good job and they're going to remember you. First of all, it tells you a lot about the program director. You're learning too. This program director is passionate about the program. I love that. That was the case for the program I'm at now. It was a big selling point. I love that enthusiasm, and it made me want to be part of the program as well.
You and the program director can vibe. Oh, you know that's going to be a great program for you.
Exactly. That's why the interview is as much for you as it is for them. So that's one of them. You want to ask them what sets their program apart from other programs. That's a great question to ask.
It actually reminds me of my question. So my go-to question that I asked every PD was, if you had, and this is like a fun one because I always wanted to make sure that they know like I have a very fun side because I don't stop talking and you know that. So my go-to question was, if you had like unlimited resources, what would be something super cool that you always wanted to add? And it was just so interesting to see based on the personality of the PD what they would envision with that question. So I love that. Like, ask questions that you genuinely want to know and ask questions that show you a glimpse and a personality of the PD also. Because remember, this person is going to be, sort of like your guidance and your light for your program for the next 3 years. You want to make sure you have some sort of a communication you can vibe with this person.
Yeah, definitely.
What about post-interview communication?
So post-interview communication is tricky. Overarching advice is don't worry too much about it. They have your application. They have so much information. You've done the hard work. So it's not the way you communicate like before and after isn't going to make or break it. That being said, they usually will give you some rules or advice at the end of the interview. They'll say, I think trend now is to go to limited communication for that reason that it shouldn't affect your application that much, the emailing. They have very strict rules about communication. So, and they might even say something like, if you email us and you get something very short back, don't read into it too much. So again, don't read into that too much.
And honestly, that happened to me. Like, I agree with what you're saying. Like, my personal experience on a lot of my FM programs were, it's, unless they said that do not email us, I always try to follow up and just be like, thank you again. I interviewed you on this day, blah, blah, blah. Very short, simple, sweet email. Sometimes I would get thank you. Sometimes I would get nothing. Sometimes I would get, oh yeah, it was nice to meet you. Good luck on the match cycle, whatever. So it can be very dry, but it's, again, you can't take that to heart.
Don't read into it. One of the things that if I was to send emails, and I did send emails, the places where they allowed to send emails, I would recommend sending emails. My strategy, what I like to do, was send an email, like a little email, not too long. I tried to send it to everyone who interviewed me. Yeah, so it's just a nice touch, and to the program coordinator. So you could send an email to the coordinator saying, I just want to thank you for all your hard work putting this together. I had a really great time at the dinner, blah, 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 blah. I'm very in the program. Then I would send one. The best thing that you can do is if you really bonded with some of the people who interviewed with you, if you can, a very simple email, but drop in a little thing, I really enjoyed our discussion about this, this, and this. I think it shows that you were very interested.
Paying attention.
Genuine. Yeah, you were paying attention and you remembered them specifically. So going along those lines, during your interviews, I know it's a very nerve-wracking process. Sometimes you can get caught up in the flow of it. You're going, this person, this person, this person. Try to remember names of who you interviewed with. And try to remember specific things that you talked about with each person, because you may want to send that email after with that specific thing.
Exactly.
And if, as long as we're talking about post-interview communication, I think after the interview is done, the day is done, I figured this out maybe 2 interviews in. Really take a notepad out, write the name of the program on top, and write down everything you can remember about the interview, like things that you want to remember.
Hmm.
Because
And like you said, I mean, I did the same thing. Like, it's a specific thing, like, oh, I remember I talked to the PD about basketball coaching. I
yeah,
talked to so and so about a recipe. Don't want to forget these little details because I assure you, I mean, after the number of interviews you and I had, it got blurry for me.
yeah,
And I couldn't even remember what the hospital some of them looked like. Everything was merging together in my head. This was like really the only way I could keep things straight.
it's a good idea at the start of interview season to print out. This is what I would do if I could go back. I would go on a
Okay.
Word document. I would print out a
Uh,
template for the interviews. It would say the name of the place, the program director.
right.
It would say the salary, like things you want
Yeah.
to know to differentiate. It would say the call schedule, different
Uh-huh.
questions that you ask, like little specific details, benefits, J1 visa status, is it accepted? I would print that out. I
Hmm.
would bring it to every interview. And then right after
Yes.
the interview, I would fill out that
Fantastic idea.
template because
Right.
I'm telling you, when you go to your when you start ranking, and you can speak to this too, when you
It's
start
tough.
ranking,
Uh-huh.
you forget.
This is actually such a great idea. And actually, bouncing off of that earlier in the first video when we were talking about resources. So one of the reasons why I used Master Resident personally was because they had this feature on their website where I was able to, right after the interview, just be like, oh, okay, I'm going to give them, like, they had a point system. So I just like was able to really quickly give points to certain programs, like location points, team points, whatever, interaction points. By the end, like exactly what you said, by the end, when it came to my rank list, I was like, oh, how did I feel after this
Yeah,
particular interview? I would pull up the Master Resident thing and I'd be like, oh yeah, this is exactly how I feel. Oh yeah, I gave them this many points that day because that's genuine. Because I think it's so important to go, like, that gut feeling that you have right after the interview is so important when you're ranking. I love your idea. So if you guys are out there listening and watching, like, make a template. If not, use Master Resident. Like, I personally, that was one of the reasons why I did get it and I loved it. So
I
I
think that's a
totally
great.
recommend
I
that.
think that's such a smart resource. I wish I knew about it
Yeah.
before. I think that's so
Oh,
smart.
I'm so sorry I didn't share that with you before.
Well, now everyone will know. So I think it's great.
Exactly.
And I think
Exactly.
like you said, the gut feeling. I think the gut feeling is extremely important. No matter
Yeah.
what program it is, if you work hard and you want to get a certain amount of experience and learning out of it, you're going to get it because you are in charge of that.
100% agree.
You're going to be there for 3 years. You want it to be the best 3 years it could be. Go with
Yes.
your gut feeling of how you feel about it, and I think everything will work out that way.
I would say, just based off that, knowing that you and I ranked into great programs and programs that we love, which is why we ranked them so high.
Yeah.
Like, looking back at it now, it's so relieving. And I'm like, not to, put down any other programs. Every program is good in its own way, but you don't fit in, and that's okay. Then you're going to rank them lower. But that's the whole point. I love that we're saying that to everybody's gut feeling is so, so important.
One thing I would have added for post communication, I think another strategy is if you during the dinner with the residents or during the tour, if you had more questions and sometimes they give you their contact information, like their email,
Yeah.
or sometimes the residents actually are the ones who are interviewing you for one of the interviews, and they'll
Right.
give you their contact info.
Mm-hmm.
I think they are a great resource. A great question to ask a resident after the interview is,
That's such a good one. Mm-hmm.
what do you suggest how do you suggest I communicate with the program?
Just bouncing off of that, one of the things I also asked is just to get to, a real idea of what they truly thought. If you could match here again, would you? Awesome. So, I mean, wrapping this up, this has been like a power packed video of advice. Seriously. Like, is there anything else you want to add?
I think just to remember that it's a marathon. It's a grueling process.
Yeah.
But it's also very rewarding at the end. Always good to catch up. And I think this is such a great, I wish I had this when I was applying. So really take advantage of these videos. They're amazing.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
What a great job.
Yes, thank you. And you know what? On that note, congratulations again. Thanks so much, guys. See you next time.